Where did you so Christina, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Jacksonville, Texas, south of
Okay.
Tyler.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and there was a video that came out at one point in time a few years back that scientifically proved Jacksonville to be the worst city to live in Texas.
Oh my goodness.
So they used demographics like home ownership, education, poverty level, things like that. Weather was a factor. So yeah, so I grew up in the worst place to live in Texas, apparently.
And then you just like as soon as you could, just
It's
like
beautiful though. It really is beautiful. The pine curtain is, I mean, it's
yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
nice, It's nice to visit. It's nice
I
to
feel like
visit.
everywhere in Texas has its own sort of unique charm. And welcome everybody that's coming into the webinar. We're gonna give a couple minutes for everybody to get settled before we really get started. So we're just talking about where we came from and where we've been. I mentioned that. So I will say I grew up in Pearland, Friendswood area. When my wife and I graduated college, my joke has always been she wanted to move north, and I said Dallas is about the cutoff because past that is Oklahoma, and ugh, who wants to do that? And we lived in Dallas, that Dallas area, for about 10 years. But we came back to the Gulf Coast regularly because all our family's here. She and I grew up in the same community, so all of our family are within probably a 2 mile radius. And so I joked with my Dallas friends that I have a little like lifetime movie life, like hop in my little truck and put down to a little city hall for my little meetings and all. And I can see the elementary school that I went to out of my office window right now. So what about else? Anybody else boomerang back around or stay exactly where they came from? Anybody?
I,
Landon?
I
You?
boomeranged. I
You
grew up in
did?
Garland, yeah, and now I live in Garland again.
I love Garland, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's a I mean, it's a fantastic community. We have friends that live there, that settled there. And it's so nice.
I always
Yeah.
it makes me laugh because it was the opening shot of what was it,
King of
Zombie
the Hill.
or something like that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Zombieland.
Yeah.
yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, I forgot that too.
Isn't King of the Hill based off of
Hmm.
like it's
Yeah.
dreamed up off of Garland, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And it
Okay,
has
so
had
we
the Denton flea market in it. I don't know if y'all ever remember that episode, but I think they bought a bat
no.
there, or you could buy a bat there. Yeah, true story.
That's so fun. All right, I think we're good. We're gonna go ahead and get this thing kicked off and try to be mindful of everybody's time here. Thank you all for joining us today. We are doing our monthly webinar today, talking about going from non-government industries, taking that experience and moving into government positions. So I'm Josh Lee. I'm the Director of Communications for the City of Pearland. I'm going to be your host for today. So the whole idea, you started your career, big dreams, naive and green as all get out. You started work in some industry, and then somehow one day you wake up and you find yourself in local government dealing with situations that you couldn't even possibly make up. Right? So everybody recognize that feeling. So we're going to talk a little bit today. We have a great panel of really fascinating, a strong cross section of all sorts of industries, all sorts of backgrounds, with experience in non-government and then government. And hopefully, we'll gain some insights that'll help a lot of people, or at least help people feel more at home and more comfortable, knowing that they're not alone. Before we do that, a couple of things I want to kick off. Feel free to leave some comments in the comment section if you want to continue along with the conversation and be a part of it. We will have Q&A throughout, so use the Q&A function if you have any specific questions for the panel that you'd like me to inject in there. Afterwards, a recording of this will be posted on our new Tamio Listens website, where we keep all of our webinar information. And then definitely visit that because we're looking for feedback and input on future webinar sessions that we will have or would like that you all would like to hear. And then before we get this thing kicked off, I want to mention if you haven't seen it, the registration is now open for the 2025 TAMIO conference. So get your registration in. Space is limited-ish. And it's going to be fun in Fort Worth. And if you're a first-time attendee and you want to go to dinner, you get to go with this guy, and it's going to be super fun. So without that, let's get into introducing our panel here. First, we have, and just wave as we go past, Kristen Wagoner from Arlington. She started in newspapers, right? And then we're going to definitely talk about this. Took a detour to put wiretaps on people's phones before coming into government. So I cannot wait to hear that background. Luke Simons, is it Simons or Simmons? Simons?
It's Simons.
Okay.
Yep.
With the city of San Antonio, 20 years of experience in journalism, right? Goodness.
That's correct.
And then we have Jennifer Goldfield with the town of Northlake, who had an ad agency, still has an ad agency. And can I say the other part about the marketing director? She has 3 jobs. She's the marketing director for Rednecks with Paychecks, which is a large, is it a mudding event or is it like
Yeah,
it's like
it's an off-road mudding event.
Mardi Gras meets mud.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's going to be my thing. You don't have to use that if you don't want to. And next we have Landon McBride with Richland Hills, worked in journalism, sports, news, and I think the most fun for a funeral home.
Yeah.
What did you, well, we're going to talk more about that. I have so many questions. Next is Karen Anderson. She's with the town of Fairview. Was a newspaper reporter, correct?
Yes.
For 12 years and also worked for the NTTA. I'm proud to say that I still have a North Texas toll road toll tag, even though I live in the Gulf Coast. So repping North Texas. And a surprise guest, we didn't include this in the original invitation, but Christina Stanton with Burleson. She was a restaurant owner for 10 years,
Yes.
plus graphic designer, screen printer, escape room owner.
Yes. Built it from the
What?
ground up. I've
Was
lived
it
a few
a-
lives.
Was it like an accidental escape room, or like it was like, oh no,
Like
I'm gonna do
I
it?
just got trapped in.
Yeah,
No, no. So my husband and I, we were in the restaurant industry and we were looking to do something different. And this was when escape rooms were becoming a thing. And so we closed our restaurant and we opened an escape room. We built it from the ground up. Had a religious themed escape room and a rock and
Terrifying.
roll themed. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I mean, I can only imagine like the insurance liability. Like, how do you go about starting an escape room? You're just like, we're just going to do an escape room.
Well, so we're kind of like the leap of faith people,
Sure.
you've just got to take that initial leap of faith. So I think if you really are passionate about something and believe in it and put everything into it, it was a lot of sketchbook pages, a lot of writing, a lot of self-teaching, teaching myself how to run a WordPress website and things that I needed,
Ugh.
logistically. So we're just kind of maybe a little crazy like that.
I don't know if this resonates with any of the rest of the panel, but I think that what you said, I can kind of see that in myself as well. And maybe this is one of the lessons or aha moments. But recently, we have so the conference that our church is in, they have a summer camp up in Kansas, and they're going to do a capital project. And they asked if I would sit on the committee for fundraising for the capital project. And of course, I said yes, I'm honored to do it. And I mentioned it to my wife, and she said, what the hell do you know about fundraising? Because I've never done anything like this before. And I thought, well, nothing, but like, I mean, I guess I'm confident enough that I feel like I could do it. I mean, I haven't not done it or failed at it hard enough that I'm not going to try.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
And you
exactly.
don't know
You
until
don't know until you try. So, I mean, and that's what we did. So when we did our restaurant, I went to school for ceramics. So it was like, are we going to do
Sure.
ceramics or
Yeah,
are
that
we
makes
going to do a
sense.
restaurant? I mean, right? That makes sense. So we were like, people got to eat. They don't have to have mugs. And we had a baby on the way. So we went with the restaurant and just went all in.
What kind of restaurant was it?
It started as barbecue.
Okay.
And it
Okay.
grew. So we were in D Magazine for our barbecue and for our burgers. It was called the Barbecue Joint in Aubrey, Texas. And it kind of morphed because we got feedback from our customers that their wives didn't per se want barbecue every day. So we
Hmm.
started, changing and grew into home style and lots of different offerings, stuffed baked potatoes, barbecue tacos, quesadillas, stuff like that. So you
That's
just kind of
wild.
gotta listen to your audience, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean it transfers over to what we do here, right?
So that's actually, that was going to be my first sort of set of questions. So I'd like to go just kind of around. We'll start with you, Christina. Two things. Um, how long have you been in local government, and how did you go from escape room owner to local government? Like, what is that? How does that work?
So I've been in government for 6.5 years now. And it was just kind of different shifts in life. So my mother-in-law had become ill. So we
Hmm.
decided we're going to pack up and we're going to move, right? We're the all-in type of people. So we left where we'd raised our son for 10 years in Pilot Point and came down to Burleson. And I tried being a stay-at-home mom, and that was hard. That's hard. It's
Sure.
really hard.
Sure.
Word to the stay-at-home moms. So basically my husband actually found the job on Indeed and was like, I think you would be a good fit for this. You've taught yourself all of these things that they're asking for. And I really focused, the title was communication and design assistant. And so it was kind of a bait and switch, right? Because like I focused on the design assistant part. I didn't really understand what the communication aspect of it was going to
Sure.
be. And so
Yeah.
here we
Yeah.
are 6.5 years later, started as a part-time job, promoted to a full-time job the next year, promoted to manager last year. So just,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you.
So, so it's funny you mentioned that. When I started, so my background was in advertising and marketing. My last job in Dallas, I worked for Fossil as a global marketing strategist for all of the owned brands. Well, yeah, all the owned brands. And so when I got here, I didn't realize the emergency management piece was as important as it was. So the emergency manager came into my office and he said, "How much training do you have in emergency management?" And I was like, "That's a big fat goose egg, brother." And so one of the things that I had to expedite that learning curve that was the steepest was the FEMA training pieces. And I'm thankful for it. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the job that I do now. But it was one of those you don't know. Like I can't believe I got the job without having that, but I'm thankful that I did. Um, so Kristen, how did you go from putting wiretaps on phones to local government? And how long have you been in local government now?
I've been in local government almost 13 years.
Oh,
A
wow.
little over half of that was up in Kansas City, and then the rest I've been in Texas long enough that it's almost half at this point.
Wow.
So I started in newspapers, kind of journalism, like a lot of people did, and the newspaper I worked for closed, and ended up kind of just hopping to a temp agency that placed me at Sprint when it was actually Sprint. And it was in the emergency exigent circumstances legal realm, to where it was answering calls from 911 operators needing to GPS people's phones to find them in emergency situations, as well as then transitioning into putting wiretaps on people's phones. I have a minor in criminal justice in college, and so it sort of fit that a little bit. When I was in newspapers, it was a fairly small town. And so I got to know the city administrator there really well. And he really encouraged me to go into government communications. And it just, didn't really work at the time that the newspaper had closed, but about 2 years later, a job at the town that I grew up in Kansas City, in communications opened up, and ended up applying for it, and it worked out that way, and found the niche that I was supposed to be in.
So what was it like working in your own home community? I think it made it easier or harder?
So at the time, I thought it made it harder because there was a lot of expectation placed on me, and they just assumed that I knew things because I did know things from growing up there. But now working in a couple different communities, I really did not appreciate just how much that background knowledge helped me be
Yeah,
successful in the position.
yeah.
And so I'm
Because
a
there
little
are
jealous of
certain
it.
skills that translate, and then but that tribal knowledge is the hardest thing to replicate. Like you can't in some ways.
I think that's probably what ended up getting me the job over other applicants, was that I knew the community and knew it really well. So I had that institutional knowledge that some of the others might not have.
So it's funny, when I feel a little maybe not bad about this. I'm tiny, I'm sort of competitive. And when I interviewed for the role, we were sitting in this giant waiting room, just me and one other person, and she was dressed very nicely, clearly there to interview for the job as well, which I thought was odd that they had us sitting together. And I struck up a conversation with her because I'm a friendly person, and said, "Oh, what made you interested in this job?" And she said, "Oh, well, used to visit Pearland a lot, and I think it's an interesting place, and so forth and so on." And she said, "What about you?" And I said, I'm from here. This is my place, so I'm coming back to this place to do this job." And then it got really quiet. We
Stake
sat
your claim
uncomfortably.
right there.
Yeah. But that was one of the, one of the, I think, selling points is that I knew this community, and I have a passion for it. And I sometimes wonder if you took me in the job that I do and put it in a different community that didn't raise me, would I be the same at my job? And I just, I think about that sometimes. Who wants to go next? Jennifer, you have all these different jobs, and one of them, a big portion is working in local government. How long have you been in local government, and how did you get here?
Uh, I have been here almost 4 years. I was doing freelance, 100% freelance stuff shortly before I got the job here. And we were moving from the Corinth area to Argyle. So I did a search on Indeed on, jobs available in my new zip code. And this was the first one that popped up, which is funny.
Wow,
They had just shut off the application process, but they kind of let me slide in there, and I got the job. So yeah,
that's really cool. But I mean, you still do projects on the side or in the evening for
I
your
do.
agency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I typically go home after work and start my second job almost every night,
Oh, my
all
goodness.
weekend. Yeah,
And your agency, is it like full service, or do you mainly do design work, or what's your specialty?
it's a full service creative agency, but typically I do all the graphic design and web design.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm a hobby welder on the side, and sometimes I get projects that I probably shouldn't take, but again, overly confident. And this week specifically, I have a project that it's taken me like 4 or 5 hours each night to work on, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It sucks all the fun out of
well,
it.
it's a necessity for me. So, I'm a single stay-at-home. Well, it's not saying I'm a single parent. I've got one kid that is a senior, and I've got another one at UNT. So,
Wow.
it's a necessity to,
Sure.
yeah,
It's impressive.
yeah. Thanks.
Uh, Karen, what about you? How long have you been in local government, and how did you get here?
I've been here 2 years, and I started when I left journalism. I went to work for the NTTA, and they actually are a government organization. So that was
Right,
kind of
right.
my dipping my toe in. And I found NTTA because I had as a reporter, covered them and interviewed some people there. And so it seemed like I kind of had an in. And it's kind of the same thing when the job came open in Fairview, that I had done a little bit of reporting in Fairview before. So it just, and I loved the community when I visited. So I just thought, yeah, that would be a great place to work.
And Landon, was working at a funeral home the last thing you did before you came to local government? Because feels like there's a connection between those two.
Yeah, it was the last thing I did before I came to local government, but it was a weird pit stop between being a reporter.
Yeah.
When I decided to leave being a reporter, I was in Wichita Falls, and
Okay. Yeah.
then a cool thing called COVID happened, and everyone quit hiring except for funeral homes. And
Oh,
one of
Lord.
my friends is a funeral director, and she got me a job there, and it was pitched as help, with the videos and set up speakers. And when you're there for a year and a half, they expect you to do more than just set up speakers after a while. So I did a little bit of everything, but yeah, it was my last stop.
That is terrifying
Yeah, it
and
was.
wild. So I'm noticing a trend here. I didn't realize we had so many Kansas people on the call. I've actually been to you said Wichita
Wichita
or Wichita
Falls.
Falls? Oh, sorry, I
Wichita
was thinking
Falls.
Wichita, Kansas. Sorry. Yep. Okay, never mind that. That's really cool. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, so I've been here at the city of San Antonio for almost 2 years. It'll be this summer, so I'm still pretty new to this, but at least I made it through the first year of kind of figuring everything out. I think, like a lot of us do, that first year was a huge learning curve, but at least I know what to expect in the second year and that sort of thing. Yeah, I spent 20 years in TV broadcast, did just about everything you can do in a newsroom, from being an editor and photographer to, at one point, I was a news director at a small station. I anchored and covered some pretty big events. When I started in sports, I went to a Super Bowl with the Steelers and a World Series with the Tigers, which was cool. But then saw horrific accidents and things, while I was working here in San Antonio when we had the shooting at Robb Elementary. And so I've kind of covered the gamut of all the good, the bad, and the ugly in between. And I think that's a big part of why they thought I was a good fit here. And also, like some have said, I am local, so this is home. This is where I was born and raised. So I went to a bunch of stations and then finally came back. But it's been great. I like it. I still get to kind of play that journalist part when media come to us, and then we've got to figure out, okay, who's that's going to be answering, where do we get the answers from. So that's kind of where my background helps out here. And then, like I said, learning all the other stuff in between with city government has been interesting. So it's been great so far, and having conversations like this and hearing other people's backgrounds and kind of getting to know them and see, you're not alone, and there's a lot of people who go through a lot of stuff. I love having conversations like this. So this is what's exciting. It's good talking to people that understand what you're going through. So yeah, that's me a little bit.
No, that's awesome, and I appreciate the variety of years of experience and diversity of experience. It's I when I approached this idea, I was thinking of my own personal experience, having the majority of my career in not government and private sector, and then a portion of it in public sector, and wondering, I bet there are more people like me that could learn from these things. I didn't realize how many and how wide and how diverse they're going to be. And I noticed it too when we interview people, especially depending on where the economy is. We get, a flood of applicants for like during the pandemic years. We were probably one of the only entities that was hiring people, and freelancers especially were really struggling. So that's really fascinating, and I appreciate all the perspectives. We'll start with you, Luke, and I just want to kind of go around thinking about that transitional period and those first couple years. What are some of the things that either you wish you would have known, or kind of surprised you coming into it, or things you might not have expected going from another industry to the public to local government?
Yeah, I think the biggest adjustment for me was like in a newsroom, we're going out, we're asking all the questions, we're trying to get everything as quick as we can. And, like the way they're working, especially in the media now, they want it now. They want to be able to put the information out. And then being on the other side of it, the biggest adjustment for me has been the approval process and like understanding that you're going to have to go to the right people and get the right answers. And depending on where they're at and what they've got on their plate, sometimes that's a little more complicated than others. Um, I've also like learned a lot on the engagement side of how much, a city has to do that and really get people's input. And then like on the comm side for us is like, how do we make sure that people hear about a town hall or a very important thing? So I think that's been a big learning curve. And then also we put a lot of effort into our accessibility, making sure that everybody within the city can get that message. So I think that's like a lot of the stuff that just people don't understand on the outside or when you're going into government. There's so many different things that you are thinking about. Whereas, on the media side, you're just trying to reach as many people as you can. And I mean, in a way, you're doing that, within city government, but at the same time, you're being strategic of being like, who are the people that are that this affects? Our council members have their own districts that they're worried about. There's certain items that, in the city manager's office that they want people to not understand and know, like when we get to budget season, everybody's figuring that out. So I think that's the biggest learning curve for me is all the other items that are very important and trying to get people, involved in the process and so that they want to care about it. That's kind of what we all try and do, and make them want to be a part of the process. So that's kind of what I've learned the most probably in this, little less than 2 years.
Yeah, I always joke that I mean, the stuff we're talking about, extremely important, super, super, super dry, right? But if you want to get people engaged, just tell them you're changing their trash day. So much feedback, it's amazing. And who else? Who else wants to pitch in on that?
I can chime in on a mental shift that I underwent. So I have a background in marketing. That's what my minor was in. And so, I promoted my restaurant and my escape room all myself. It was all me. And so coming into government, I had to make that shift from, okay, I'm not trying to get your dollars. I have your dollars already. So that was the biggest learning curve for me. And then another thing was, going back to the journalism, what Luke was talking about, when I first came into the job, I'm like, where do I find this information? And I'm like, oh, I'm the one that gives the information. So that was another big like learning curve. I was like, okay. So
That is fascinating. Sorry, I'm getting messages that my mic is low. I'm gonna try to sit close to the computer. So if you see my forehead, that's what's happening right now. Is that better? Somebody please comment and let me know.
Better.
Who else has a perspective that they want to share, an observation that caught them by surprise?
I have one, just keeping my mouth shut. When somebody comments or says something horrible on social media, it's just trying to keep my mouth shut and not, was so used to just attacking back critics on social media if I wanted to, and I can't do that. I want to, like every day. I can't.
Especially on social media, that in the comments, like we've taken a hard stance on we won't tolerate misinformation or fear mongering or anything like that. And we're pretty pointed about it. But not every community is capable of doing that. You have to have a clear, like, this is how we're going to have our tone of voice, or or how we're going to shape the brand. And I find like protecting our brand is extremely important, and that carries over from my marketing and advertising days. But I'm also continually trying to evolve it, and me personally trying to break it, because that's just what I do. But that piece of it, this brand represents so much more and carries so much more weight and so much more authority, that integrity is everything. As soon as you lose it, right? As soon as you say something, uh, don't keep your mouth shut in the appropriate situation.
Find ways
Uh,
around it too. I
huh?
mean, you find ways around it too. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I'll text a former mayor and say, hey, back me up, post something here. We've got this comment here. So you find ways around it, but it's a lot different than what I was used to before I started with a municipality.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I was quite prepared for all of the competing priorities and the agendas that come along with those. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody's an expert. And I never had to deal with that in the private sector because it was so simple. Christina, to your point, market the thing, make the money. Doesn't make the money, optimize the thing until you do. And here, there's still an end goal, right? And for me, for my team, we had to simplify our why, our departmental why, and our responsibility. Because what I noticed early on, people would come to me and say, "I need a video," and I'd say, no, you don't. Like you might need something, but not necessarily a video. Like let's talk about what are you trying to get people to do, right? Let's get the end goal and then work our way back into it. And so we say our responsibility as a department here is to reduce the friction of access to information, right? You have things you need to talk about, people have things that they need to know about. How do we connect the dots between those two things? And the byproduct of that, which I think is probably one of the most interesting things about the job compared to the private sector, is like some days that means that I'm climbing a water tower, or delivering calendars by hand or shooting a video. I mean, I don't know if you all experience this, but like the day to day is so much more varied than any other job that I've ever had. Because you just never know what's going to happen. I think.
I agree
Um,
for sure.
so what do you think, what are some of the skills that plugged right into your role from your previous experiences? And what are some that you wish you would have had or you wish you would have trained up sooner?
Well, I can jump in. I mean, on the media relations side, that's what I know. Like that, I know how to talk to people in a newsroom and make a pitch. The stuff
Yeah.
I didn't know was like the marketing stuff. I wish I would have had a little more ideas on that because there's a million different ways you can reach out to people and try and get them engaged. Like I talked about, like we're all trying to do. And so trying to really figure out, okay, what's the best way? And like Christina said, sometimes you have money for certain items like that. And you're like, okay, how can I use this knowing that there's a chance that someone's going to ask, well, why did you do it this way? So I think that happens a lot. But talking to the media was something that I felt like I was pretty good at and why they brought me in. And then also I already had relationships with a lot of people at the city. And I think it's something that now on this side, it's something that I try to continue to make sure, like from the other side, they know they can come to me if they have a question or even if they're trying to get pointed in the right direction. So like using those skills and then knowing that like on this call, there's a lot of people within your government or wherever you're at that bring a lot to the table that you're not even thinking about. And so being able to go and reach out to anyone and pick their brain and just be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or what are you thinking? And then getting that perspective, it's kind of nice when you're in the city and they're not worried about what types of questions I'm going to ask. Instead, they do trust me. So that's been kind of nice.
That's interesting.
I think
What
for
else?
me, the things that just transferred straight over would be the ones that stick out to me as being obvious, like graphic design, writing skills, being able to work on a website, things like that. And I definitely, back to the very beginning of this conversation, have a huge deficit because this is not my hometown. This is my husband's hometown. And so, there's times when that I wish I had more of that, but how do you get that right? So you just have to build relationships with people that have been here for a long time. And like back to what you said, there's always agendas, so you got to watch out for that. So it's kind of interesting how, I mean, politics always plays into, I think, any profession, and this one very, very much so. So I think just knowing how to work with people, read people. I think my background with having a restaurant helped me immensely, learning how to read people and communicate with a variety of people. So those are kind of the strengths and weaknesses that I would see with my shift from one industry into this.
That's fascinating. You say that. I do a presentation for new hires, and the punchline for effective communication is to take a human first, a people first approach to all of our interactions, because one, our community is made of people, and a lot of our employees are dealing with people on very, very tough days, and we bring that weather, and we can either improve that experience or make it worse. And two, on the government side, we are also people, and our 75% of our operations and maintenance budget goes to people. It goes to salaries and benefits and things like that. And so none of this happens without people, and none of that happens without the relationships.
Right.
And so I think that's an integral part to being successful, and a skill that we have to have in the jobs that we do.
Yeah. That's one of our big pushes, is trying to get residents to understand that the government is not the government,
Right,
it's people.
It's your neighbors.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a whole podcast dedicated to that.
Oh, nice. I should go take a listen.
People of Pearland, actually, that's what it's called. So
Oh,
it's on
cool.
Spotify.
Okay.
Go check it out.
Nice. All right.
Shameless plug. Who else? What
Love it.
other skills you wish you had or brought right in? Anybody else?
I was lacking the emergency management, and I still
same.
use a little bit more with that. But everything else that in my background, kind of the design, the web programming, social media, all of that just kind of translated perfectly. But I honestly didn't have a lot of exposure to politics, which, that's another culture shock type moment in this industry, but it is what it is.
Well, and I noticed too early on the differentiation between professional employees and politicians, and the political side is exhausting to me. I don't have a lot of tolerance for it. And for that, I think I'm with you, Jennifer. The emergencies happen, and we have a responsibility to contribute to the response. Otherwise, it's narrated without us. And so those two areas, those are extremely important, both of those to be well trained in. Highly encourage everybody to take all the FEMA training you can get, because it's all free.
I want to do that.
I still stand behind the advanced public information officer training that I did. That is hands down the best professional training I've ever done. Partly because it was free, but it was also, professionally training wise, one of the most stressful experiences of my life. And I've used the lessons from that in every emergency since then. So those are great inputs. Karen, you've been nice and quiet. What about you?
Well, I think the easiest thing being a reporter, and a lot of us were former reporters, is that you learn to kind of dive into a topic that you know nothing about and really quickly ramp up and get that information. But then on the other hand, getting here, I'm used to kind of floating on the surface and learning just enough to report. And now you really have to know your stuff. And that's the tough part, is really understanding the nuts and bolts of things. And I can't just, for instance, yesterday I was working on a proclamation, and I can't just go to the city code and assume that it has all the information I need. I had to go talk to people about what's the real history here.
Yeah. That's interesting, the way you phrase that, floating on the surface. Because I think that there is some, just geographically speaking, somebody made the comment to me the other day. They said, I came by your office 3 times looking for you, and you were never there. And I'm like, that's because my office is out, like it's rare that I actually see my own desk because, the storytelling is out in the community. I do find a lot of joy in learning about the different things. We did videos the other day of pothole repair, and it's so fun to watch. I don't want to do it, but it's fun to watch. It's good content. We got a question in the comments from Cheryl Bright. She said, "Do you know when another advanced PIO training will be scheduled in this area?" I don't, Cheryl, but Preparing Texas has all of the FEMA trainings, including, I think, Advanced Public Information Officer. If they don't have it, then the FEMA Emergency Management Institute will have a list of their trainings in their catalog. I think Advanced Public Information Officer might be application based, and it does have a fair amount of prerequisites. So check that out on Preparing Texas or the FEMA NETC National. I can't think of what the acronym stands for. Sorry. But we can find more information on that. Cheryl, if you want to email me, I can help you with that as well. So transitioning from your industries to local government, what are some challenges that you face that you didn't anticipate? Karen, you can start if you like.
What did I not anticipate? I think I need to ponder that one for a minute if someone else wants
Sure,
to.
yeah. Being put on the spot?
Yeah.
Anybody have any thoughts?
I think Karen made a really great point. I just want to echo back to that of, I can't go here and look at this. And it's kind of like what I was saying, like, oh, I'm the one with the information, because you really do have to get the background, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. And, sometimes there's citizens that know more about it than you because they were here and they were watching those council meetings when you didn't live here. And so I think that was a really good point that Karen made. So I just wanted to echo back to that.
I think that's a good one too. I remember one time we were putting special event signs out, and somebody said, "Well, we need to make sure those are in the in our code, in our fire code, that we're enforcing our own guidelines." And I said, "Well, whose job is that?" They said, "Yours." It's like, that's not a me thing,
That
but
can't be right.
yeah. Does anybody else, just a quick poll, when somebody not in your department can't find an IT person, do they gravitate to you next?
Yes.
Or is that just me? Yeah.
First.
Okay.
What I
Yeah.
did this morning.
Really? We should get a pay bump for that.
I didn't anticipate learning as much as I have about local government.
Mhm.
And now I look at people's comments on things. We just did a resident survey, and I'm reading through all the comments that people are allowed to write at the end of it. And I'm like, well, if you'd just gone to a council meeting, you would have known. I'm answering their questions for them. You would have known what the progress is on this road repair if you just,
Yeah.
or if you've got a problem, come to public input. I never thought about that I would have learned so much about it. So it's good.
That's a fascinating point. I didn't realize how little I cared about local government until I actually worked here, if I'm being honest.
I didn't care at all, honestly.
Yeah.
Now I know way too much. People ask me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much you could really influence your city. I mean, through local government. I was clueless, and so I like that what you said about reducing the friction of the access to information. So I'm gonna take that away with council. But council's a hard one because you just have to have a really good relationship with your city secretary and everything to get all that information out. So
I do find myself personally annoyed by low voter turnout rates. So to that point, Christina, like we had a bond election, influencing local government. We had a bond election. We had a parks item on there. It was $30 million, and it passed by, I'm not even joking, 102 votes. We have a city of 130,000 people, and 102 people decided that we should spend $30 million. And I'm like, what? Like, how? Y'all are insane. And, I mean, so I try to emphasize it every voting season, like, if you want to be a part of this, candid, just quick, quip. My mother-in-law lives in Pearland, and we have a traffic circle that we redid, and everybody hated it. They called it the circle of death and blah blah blah. And she obviously knows that her son-in-law works for the city, was complaining to me about it. And it was a voter approved bond package, and I said, well, you voted for it. And she said, oh, I didn't vote. I didn't vote in that election. Well, then you voted for it because you didn't vote against it. And I didn't get a Christmas present that year. So, but I find myself much more passionate about it than I never cared about it before.
Yeah.
So
we were talking about gathering survey responses earlier, and I'm apparently the survey response gathering queen of Burleson. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I'll open up, I'll say, don't say you didn't know this was coming. Here's your chance. Like, trying to break through that noise, right? Because we have so much noise now. It's like, just talk real to people.
And the noise is increasing, the attention spans are shortening, the audiences are fragmenting. And so you have to be like blunt. It has to be plain. Like,
Yes.
This is why you need to pay attention to this.
Yep. I found that using reels with just eye-catching, video snips has been more successful for gathering survey responses than any other. And that's just right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, next week it'll be different, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of interesting how it all changes.
I do, what? I mean, as much as I spent time in data doing digital strategy, I'd never really done surveys. And like we'd get our information from performance reports, and I knew how to work in Excel and things like that, and analyze data, but actually doing surveys, that's a very specific local gov thing that we spend a lot of time doing. That's fascinating. I hadn't considered that. Karen, did you come up with the thing?
Put me on the spot. No, I think, I think one of the things that I probably wasn't prepared for was actual red tape, trying to get things done sometimes, and the levels of review you have to go through, and just getting someone to find the time to look at what you need them to look at.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's true.
That's really good. Any other thoughts on that, Kristen or Landon or Luke? Any surprises when you made the leap into local gov?
Well, I think how easy it is to get reactive. It's like that happens so often where one person says something and, it gets 50 likes and they think, oh, well, that's the whole city all of a sudden thinks that way. But then also like on our comm side is trying to like help them realize, well, if you don't like that message that's coming out from whoever or what they're saying, so how can we proactively get ahead of it or change it or do that? I think that happens. And then, when you've got so many stakeholders within a city, you've got department heads of multiple departments, you've got people. So there you go. Yeah. And then, so I think that's one of the things that you learn pretty quick. Like, okay, take a second, look at it. How big is it really? And obviously for a department, it's might be huge, but on the big scope of things, it may not be as big. And then like you guys said, like, the way social media is, and like city government can still have some fun. Like, let's throw some stuff out there that gets people to want to be interested in our social media channels so that they'll actually come and see what we have, so that when there is a town hall or a vote that's really important, maybe they will see it that they wouldn't have before. And so it's like
Heck yeah.
trying to make that in. We've been doing a lot of that. And so, you know, proactive versus reactive is probably one of the biggest things to try and help people out
Amen.
within. Yeah.
We I like to think of our team as a little internal ad agency. And most of my people are non-government, historically non-government people. But I always encourage them. This is a thing that I learned in the firehouse agency that I worked for in Dallas. Start with the idea that'll get you fired, and then work your way back to where you won't get fired. And like that's where the magic is. You know what I mean? Like you got to start with something a little dangerous and then find the sweet spot in there. And haven't been fired yet. So,
That's kind of a running joke. We're like, is this the one that's gonna get me fired? So yeah, I feel that. We
I
like to
think
live
I think it's important to
dangerously,
experiment. Yeah.
for sure.
We're definitely not rule like we definitely go through and like, well, how can we break this thing for the betterment? You know what I mean? Like it's not just disrespecting surroundings. I mean, it's we're trying to make things we're perpetually evolving. Just like communications are. So in the last couple of minutes we have here, what advice would you either give yourself coming into the industry, or if you met somebody that was like first week on the job, what would you tell them, coming in from another industry, or even just new out of college? What's something you learned that you wish you would have known?
The reward for good work is more work.
Yeah.
I call my director, well, I used to under somebody else. I used to call her the junk drawer, because it was like if another director or someone didn't know where to put something, it would come to us.
Yeah.
So that would be a cautionary tale that I would tell myself.
Well, and I think comms people, and maybe all this resonates with you all, but I have a hard time not raising my hand to say like, I can do that better, or whatever differently, or like, yeah, like that overconfidence of like, of course I can do the thing. Of course I can fix your computer monitor, Mr. Council member, because there's not an IT person around. Like, but that's a good point. Be careful about when you raise your hand. Solid point.
I would say when you're
Luke?
looking at jobs, you're going to see like there's a long list. Everybody posts them the same way. But know what your strengths are. Like, hey, this is what I bring to the table. This is what I know. And then make sure that you're surrounded by good people. Like, I'm fortunate. We have a really good team. I'm part of the communications and engagement department. So like we have a couple people that do creative, and we've got engagement, things like that. Our open records team is in our department. But surround yourself with people. Don't be afraid to go and ask and try and find out the stuff that you may not know. Because in those job postings, there's no way anyone coming into one of those postings knows everything that's listed on there. So like really be confident in the stuff that you do know, and then find the ways to try and fill the gaps and learn quick when you do jump in. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would say for someone looking into this, because it is different. City government's a beast. There's a lot going on. And so just find that.
And I mean, this is just generally speaking, thinking about a personal experience. Like, don't ever assume that just because somebody is confident in something or says it, like, feel free to push back or challenge. Admittedly, I had an employee on my team that for years did our annual calendar because I asked her to, because I thought before I got here, she was the one that did the annual calendar because she showed me how to do it. Turns out she had never done it before. And it was a point of contention for her, and she never said anything about it. I'm like, if you would have said something, I would have done something different. But like, you just don't know what you don't know. And there is fear and trepidation around saying the wrong thing, or asking a dumb question or whatever. And the faster you get over that, the more successful you can be, because we're all just trying to figure it out. That's a good one. Kristen, what about you?
I think kind of jumping on that is don't be afraid to look stupid by asking lots of questions, because there are so many different departments and different functions in the city that there's no way that you can know everything and know how everything works. And so asking those questions up front, and in your first couple of months, you have the grace that you're new and you don't know what you're doing, because 2 years down the road, if you ask one of those questions, somebody may look at you a little funny because you didn't have the guts to ask it when you first started. So
Sure. I think that's good. And I think showing appreciation for the time that people take to explain things. I think having grace and gratitude hand in hand, because that goes towards building the relationships. But I think you're absolutely right. Ask those questions early and often.
Yeah,
It's a
I
great one.
agree. I want to second that, because even if you've worked in a government organization, it's going to be different if you go somewhere else. So you can't assume that
Right.
it's going
Yeah,
to be the same. So you have to ask those questions.
that's a great point. Yeah. That's good. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap up this fantastic? This has been my favorite webinar so far, if I'm being perfectly honest. I could sit and talk to you all for a couple more hours, but I know we all have probably half a dozen different things we have to do, and it's lunchtime and all that good stuff.
It was a great group. Good job putting
Yeah.
it together.
Well, I want to thank you all for taking the time and being willing to come and talk. It's people like you that make this industry great, that make our organizations great, and make Tamio great, frankly speaking. And I can't wait to see you all in person at the conference this summer, so I can give you a big hug and talk more about funeral homes and escape rooms and tapping people's phones. So I want to thank you everyone today and let you know the recording of this webinar will be posted in the next couple days. And then look for an email soon about our April webinar where Maggie Holman's going to be teaching us about team structures and what's been successful for people. So don't forget, sign up for the what's the thing? The conference. Golly, Fort Worth in June 4th to the 6th, I believe. And look out for that next email. And y'all have a good rest of your day and a good month. We'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye.